Hello, I'm Felicity Cohen. I'm so excited to introduce you to my Wellness Warriors podcast. For over 20 years, I've been a passionate advocate for helping thousands of Australians find solutions to treating obesity and health-related complications through surgical intervention and holistic managed care. My podcast is dedicated to all the people, past, present and future, who have helped shape my journey and continue to inspire me to work consistently to achieve a healthier Australia in both adults and future generations. I hope you enjoy it. Today I'm going to introduce Trish Bridgement. Trish, I've actually known you now for 17 years and can't believe that we're sitting here today, 17 years later. Your surgery was in 2002.
Gosh, that long ago.
So first of all, welcome to the Wellness Warriors podcast.
And you haven't changed a bit.
Neither of us have aged a day.
Not at all.
So yeah, 17 years has gone by so quickly, but for you that's meant a lifetime of change and growth, and so many experiences that we can relate back to where you first started 17 years ago. So I guess my first question, if you can think back to 2002, before October 2002 when you had your first surgery, what was that one trigger for you that made you think I really need to do something about my health, my wellness and change my life?
I think I'd done so many yo-yo dietings, like most of us have. For every 10 kilos you lost, you gained another 10. And I was unhealthy. I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do with the kids and travel and all sorts of things. And I think, we had a look at weight loss solutions and kind of thought, let's go and have a little sticky beak at this and change my life. Yeah.
It was a really big decision. 2002 was really still at the infancy of bariatric surgery, and in that era, it was still considered taboo by a lot of GPs. So for you to make that choice back then was very, very different from patients exploring this now. If I think to today, these days everybody knows someone who's been there, done that. In 2002, you were making a step forward in this world that very few people were doing.
And there'd be that time where you didn't want to tell people, but then I became quite proud at the fact that I've done something to change my life for the better, and so that was a step forward for me.
What were some of the things that were inhibiting you to really live the life that you wanted back in 2002?
The weight that you're carrying. You can't run around with the kids. The kids were in pony club. There was lots of things that I just couldn't do. Walking was a no-no. All the negative things are that because you've got weight on, you want to exercise, but because you've got weight on, you often can't exercise, or you're embarrassed to go to a gym or do any of those things. Well, all of that changed. I was deep water running 6 days a week after it, and I had a personal trainer. I got really into the fitness side of things, and we got to travel and do things that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do. So that side of it was great.
When you first started exploring surgery, what was your vision for your future life then? And then if you can tell us a little bit about, is that where you thought you'd be like today, 17 years later?
Look, I didn't know. You go into that with an open mind, which I did, and I knew I would lose some weight. Whether I was going to keep it off or whether it's another story, but I have been able to do that. So I guess looking back now, I wouldn't change anything. There's positives and pluses in everything, but for me, this was the start of a new life. I've turned 50. I was sort of over those days. Having been a child of being very thin as a child and growing up, but after I'd had 3 children, kind of went downhill after that. I just gained a little bit of weight each time, and I just really struggled to get it off. So this was the tool for me to help me move on and have a very enjoyable life,
So thinking back to your youth, I think you did some modelling?
I did, yep. Yeah, okay. So it was catwalk modelling, and I can remember to this day that my ribs, my hip bones used to stick out, and one of the things they asked me to eat was grapes because they were healthy, but they were a thing that could help put a little bit of weight back on. And I look back now and think, oh, they knew. But I love doing modelling. I love being in front of people. That's a real plus with all my jobs that I've had. It's always been with people, and having lost that weight gives you that more confidence. And I was a confident person anyway. But, you know, you couldn't go to the gyms and you couldn't, you know, get out in a swimming costume and you didn't feel comfortable, you know. So that's just the way it was for me.
What were some of the things that you think led to your weight gain in the first instance?
Probably children. We lived in Sydney with my mum, not with them, but you know, parents were down there. We moved up here when my youngest was only 8 months old, and my mum was diagnosed with cancer, and there was a terrible lot of stress. And then my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. So within a few months of each other, they both passed. Most people under stress tend to lose weight. For me, my body sort of said, hang on to it. And that's what happened. So we were in not a foreign land, but Queensland was a long way away from family and friends. And I found the stress is what, you know, I just couldn't. I don't know whether I just went to comfort foods, but I did gain weight. And I don't know whether it was a, you know, metabolic type of thing, is that the right word? But thank you. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's what caused it, but certainly stress with having lost, you know, a whole lot of family members. You know, I'd lost my brother and then my other brother and my father. So in a space of 10 years, I'd lost my whole family. And I think that was a big thing towards the weight gain. And I needed a tool because I wasn't happy in myself. And, you know, this was the tool that I went for.
How old were your kids when you had your surgery?
Oh gosh, let me think. How long ago? 17 years. Well, my eldest is nearly 40.
Okay.
My middle one's 35 and 33. So yeah, they were sort of 17 was the youngest one. 17, 18, 19, 20 and 23, something like that. Yeah.
So I guess you probably wanted to be, you know, the role model that you'd always wanted to be for your girls,
right.
A family of women.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, we all want to be out there and playing with the kid, not playing as in they're not little babies, but previous to that, you know, I couldn't do a lot of the things that other mums were doing. You know, I'd stand on the sideline and yell at them, but I couldn't run up the sideline with them, you know. So the benefits of that has changed my life, you know, and I'm very sort of active now, you know, I'm sort of very hands-on with the grandchildren. They keep me busy, so yeah.
Career. What has changed for you over the last 17 years in terms of your career pathway? Did you notice that you were more confident, capable of going for different jobs post weight loss?
Yeah.
Tell us about your career transformation.
Look, I've never ever had a problem getting a job. I have a personality that you know, stands out above other people quite often. But my last job that I got, you know, I've been there for 5 years and I've just retired from. You know, I was 60. When I went for that position and I got it, and I was really surprised, and it was because, you know, I was a lot slimmer, you know, much more confident in myself. I loved speaking with people. That's my biggest thing. You know, I'm a great communicator, and it was a great reception job. It was something I hadn't done for a long time. You know, previous to that, for 20 years I'd been merchandising with many big companies. I think last time I spoke to you I was with Mondelez, which was Cadbury. And that kept me fit. I'd never been able to do those sort of things, you know, the building of displays and in and out of the cars and the shopping centres, you know. So I've always been a little bit on the fitter side, but, you know, the weight is what held you back all the time, you know. So, yeah, that's my life.
So let's talk about your fitness change in what's happened to you, you know, over that time. And I think one of my greatest, fondest memories that really links me back to you, you know, for me, the connectedness that you had with all of us at the clinic was really special, and it taught me a lot about community and about how important it was for us to provide that network of support around our patients, and that comes and evolves from our patient interactions and experiences, and you were such a big part of that. So when I think back to one of my first major milestones and memories of things that we did together, we got involved in doing the Noosa triathlon together as teams, and you were about to turn, it gives me shivers, you were about to turn 53 years of age, and at the age of 53 you decided to take on running 10 kilometres at the Noosa triathlon as part of a team. Can we talk about that experience?
Oh, wow.
You know, what did the training look like? What did the event look like? Let's just dive into that for a moment.
I mean, it was pretty daunting because I wasn't, even though I said I was fit, not in that sense, you know, I was, you know, fit after being able to, you know, go to the gym and do things like that. But you guys were fantastic because we had access to personal trainers and gym. And, you know, I'd made my mind up that I was going to do this, and I had a great family support. The girls and Ron were so much behind me. It was fantastic, as well as you guys, as you know. And it was just, I thought every time I'd run, I'd think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do this, you know. But we persevered, and we just kept training and training and training. And I'll never forget the warming up area, you know, you're sort of waiting, you know. And I had never run through sand before. I'll never forget that. And that was our first thing, and before you get onto the roadside of it, you had that sand to run through, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realise there was sand here, you know, and I got through that. And then I heard someone in the crowd yell out, go Trish. And it was a girlfriend of mine whose husband was also participating, and neither of us knew that we were going to be there. So that was really exciting to go through that, and I had, you know, one of the doctors running with me, which was great support. It was fantastic. And when we got back to that finish line, you know, it was just, awesome is the best word. It was just such an awesome experience to be able to say I did it.
10 kilometres is a long way.
It was a long way, yeah.
You know, that sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
You're in Noosa, it's
Yes.
hot as hell.
Was hot.
You know, it was a really hot
Yeah.
day. I remember how
Yeah.
hot that was that particular year.
Yeah.
And we had lots of patients and we had staff, and we were all doing
Yeah.
that together
Yeah.
with a common goal.
Yeah.
And that was really spectacular, I think. And
Look, it's something that will never be erased from your memory. You know, it was just so exciting, as you said, at that finish line, and everyone was there. And then I remember, you know, getting in the pool after it and saying, you know, walk it, walk. So I walked through it, you know, so the stiffness didn't come on. It was just great. All that support that was there, not just before, during, but also after, it was fantastic, you know.
so that was 3 years after your surgery. You've had your surgery, you've started to do really well, life's looking good.
Yeah.
You've done the Noosa triathlon, and then I also have this huge big memory, which was also something that I see as a massive achievement in your life and in your relationship with your husband Ron, that you were travelling and you got to go and experience walking part of the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
And if you think back to before your surgery, is that something you
No.
would ever have even
No,
thought about
never
conquering?
contemplated. No, not at all.
So tell us
It
all
was-
about the Great Wall of China.
Oh, look, that was a great holiday. There was we went with a composite group of people that was full of Ron's work. Went over there for a fiberglass convention, and I wasn't going originally. You know, Ron was booked and going, and I said, I'm not doing it. You know, and then I kind of thought, you know what, I can do this now. You know, so I went with him, and we had the best. I think we were there for two and a half weeks or something, and. You know, when they said that we're going to the Great Wall of China, I thought, okay, you know, and I sort of looked at it and thought, okay, I can do this too. And we did, you know, we didn't walk all the way, obviously, or a lot of it, but there was lots of stairs, and I mean, I managed it without puffing and panting like I would have normally. And that was another box ticked, you know, so that was really great. Yeah.
Amazing, and
Yeah.
something you would never have even
No,
thought about doing
no,
beforehand.
No, not at all.
It's a
No,
huge
I was laid by the pool girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we know we've just recently come back from Japan, so I was able to explore a lot of things there. You know that, you know, I would never have thought to do those things. So yeah, so we've got the travel bug and keen to do those things that years ago I would never have been able to do.
So travel's become a lot easier.
Yeah.
And look, for me, I'm talking to people a lot who are saying to me, I just want to fly in an aircraft seat without an economy class aircraft seat without an extension seat belt.
Yes.
So how does that flying and travelling and actually, you know, focusing on I can actually do these things now, what does that
Well, I think
look
the
like?
leg room for me is the biggest issue because I had weight on me. I had problems with my knees and was actually told I needed to have surgery. You know, I was sort of bone on bone. And having lost that weight has made a huge difference. I've never had to have the surgery. I'm not saying that down the track I will need to have it, but the weight was compounding the knees. It was just, and my back. You know, I'd had issues with my back. Once I'd lost the weight and I've, you know, been able to keep it off and, you know, not exercise, I don't go to a gym or anything like that, but just sort of trying to stay a little bit fit. That's made a huge difference, you know. And I mean, if that's one thing that you got out of it, it's more than anything, you know, is that I didn't need to have a knee surgery. You know, my back's much better now. I can do things, pick the kids up, you know, the little grandchildren. So yeah, my life has changed for the better. I cannot ever look back and say, oh no, I wished I'd never had it done, because I can never say that.
But that's actually amazing. Imagine if you had to go through 2 knee replacements or a back surgery.
Yeah.
Imagine if that had been the story had you not gone through.
Right. And that would have been the case. There's no two ways about it. That would have been carrying that extra weight, you know, it puts stress on all of your body, you know. And that's why I like deep water running. You know, I'm now retired, so I'm ready to go back to that, and I did that for a long time because there's no stress on your body, and it's a great way to keep fit, you know. And if you are a larger person and you're thinking about having this surgery, you know, get in the pool and do that, because no one sees you and no one cares, you know. But I know in a gym sometimes you get there and, you know, you see all those body beautifuls, and it's intimidating, you know. So for me that was a great way, and that's what I did, you know, for training for the triathlon as well as the personal training. So that was great, you know.
So let's talk a little bit about the perception that other people have. I mean, obviously that's confronting if you're going to the gym and you're worried about other people's view of you as a larger person, that's a limiting factor in people actually exploring getting fitter. What are some of the other things where you saw that perception of others as being a limiting issue for you? And let's go back to 2002 when this was such an avant-garde decision for you to make. You know, what was that public perception like? How did people see you as a bigger person?
Look, you know, the biggest problem was buying clothes. I mean, now I can walk into anywhere and I can buy off the rack, but most things stop at 18, and if you're a 22, 24 and up, you can't buy, or if you do, it's a tent. They're horrible. They don't cater for the larger person. So for me, that was a big plus, to be able to just walk in and buy something off the rack. But you know, no matter if you went to a restaurant and you ate, you feel like all eyes were on you because you're the larger person, you know, and you're not eating the salad, or you know, you're having a bowl of hot chips because that's what you did, you know. So my diet has completely changed now, which is fantastic. You know, I'm eating much healthier and enjoying the food, so that's another plus for me. And I wouldn't say I didn't eat healthy before, I just ate man-sized meals. Whatever Ron ate, I ate. So if he was having a big steak, then I'd have the big steak, whereas now it's much smaller portions, and enjoying the food a lot more, chewing it, enjoying it, you know. So.
I actually even remember in 2002 having a conversation with you about you were matching the portion size that Ron was eating, and that was a problem. And so important to actually understand that how bariatric surgery works, and this is the same for any procedure. The first thing that it acts on is satiety, helping you to feel satisfied on a smaller portion. And I think for so many patients that is one of their biggest problems, that they still feel hungry. But also now for you making healthier food choices, you know, that's obviously been a huge big learning curve change for you. Did it change the way you cooked at home for the family? Absolutely. Like, you know, there was nothing deep fried anymore, and you know, you didn't buy takeouts and things like that. So yeah, for us it was much healthier, much. I mean, you know, I loved mashed potato and things like that. Well, we cut that kind of thing out. So yeah, our choice is much healthier, and a lot of that was, you know, your dietitian guiding us as well. And I remember we used to have those nights out where you know, put on the meals and all that yummy food, and you look at that and you sort of learnt from that too. So you go home and try those little bits and pieces. So yeah, and I still eat healthy today. You know, I'm happy to say, you know, I enjoy a salad. And you know, some of the best things about that is it's not just you're not the only one benefiting.
No, that's
that the
right.
beneficiaries, you know, that extends to your whole family.
That's right.
And now I'm kind of also thinking about, okay, your kids were young, they were growing into young adults when you had your surgery. They're now adults and having their own families, they've got their own kids. So you've actually had this impact, and that started to flow through more than one generation now.
And I look at what they feed their grandchildren, and it absolutely amazes me at how healthy they are, because, you know, I've been, not in stone, but I have said to them, you know, start from the beginning, you know, don't give them junk food right away, you know. And it's great because both the grandkids are very healthy eaters, you know. Like my little grandson the other day sat there and ate peas. He was just popping these peas in his mouth, you know, and I said, that's crazy, you know. And avocado, which we never had avocado when we were kids, you know. So they've learnt to eat a much healthier lifestyle too. So that's really good for them. And that's all stemmed from watching me, you know, go down this path and watch me blossom.
That is something to be so proud of, the impact that you've had on the next two generations already now. Your grandchildren hopefully will have that impact on their own kids because they're learning those habits now. And For me, this is a really important conversation to have, that we're creating something that's going to impact the future generations, that our kids are learning better healthy habits now, that they're not going to be our patients of the future. And I love that you've been able to have that impact on your whole family.
No, that's absolutely right though. That's exactly, you know, we have discussed it, you know. And if I see the girls eating rubbish, you know, I say, okay. Oh, we only do it once in a while, you know. So they're very conscious of what they eat too, because, you know, they know what I've been through, and I don't want them to be, you know, go through what I've had to go through, you know.
Did you have any other health concerns at the time that you were having your surgery?
No, I mean, I have high blood pressure, and that's maintained with medication, and it doesn't change, so that's all under control. My back issues were the main thing. I was very concerned about that because, you know, that's your everything. So by having that, the surgery and the weight loss, that issue went away, so that's fantastic. The knee issue's gone away. So as far as my health goes now, you know, I hardly ever go to the doctors, you know, it's great.
So initially, you were probably uncomfortable to share with people around you that you'd had surgery. What does that conversation look like now with work colleagues, with family, with friends? How much more open are you to actually disclose that this is actually okay and it's something that I've chosen to do for my health and my future?
Look, the new job, I hadn't sort of spoken to anyone about it because they didn't, you know, they didn't sort of warrant it. But when I had the surgery, I was very open, and I encouraged friends to have it done, and, you know, they've talked to other people, and I know that, you know, down the line there's been quite a few friends that have had it done. So I'm not ashamed of it in one little bit. I'm proud to say that, you know, I had it done in the early days, and, you know, it's changed, and there's improvements every time you sort of turn around, there's something new and exciting coming out. But to me, it's one of those, it's a personal choice, it's something you have to do, but I am more than happy to give my story and my advice on how it's helped me to anyone else that, you know, is thinking about having it done, because to me it's a step forward, not a step back, that's for sure. And it gives you a whole new life. That's what life's about, isn't it?
Amazing, amazing, love it. So let's just start talking about life with Ron. You've been married for how many years?
46.
46 years, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about some of the changes that are probably a little bit more intimate and personal to you, in terms of how did that look for you? I mean, obviously you've had the travel experiences and your lifestyle together's changed. What about the personal relationship? How was weight loss impacting that for you?
Look, I think as we've gotten older, we're much closer. I mean, I have friends that say, I'm so jealous of you guys, you know, like they've been through a divorce or separation or whatever. And, you know, we still hold hands and we still do things. Look, Ron is probably my greatest support. You know, like he was right behind me when I first had my surgery, has been right behind me for the Noosa triathlon. Whatever I've wanted to do, he is behind me 100%. And honestly, that makes a huge difference to your life too. You know, he was going to come today and he had some work to do at home. So I said, no, I can manage this on my own. But look, we're I guess an unusual couple because we are extremely happy, still very much in love, which is nice after 46 years. The heart still skips a beat, but having his support all the way, and not just with me, but I see him with our girls and our grandchildren, you know, and he's just a real treasure.
Oh my goodness, you've actually brought a tear to my eye now. That's spectacular. And, you know, so think about this positive impact on your personal, on your marriage, you know, and it could have gone quite differently because if you were unhappy in yourself, your self-esteem wasn't great, life wasn't where you really wanted it to be when you first had your surgery, but you've had this incredible, you know, relationship that's evolved and probably gone in a different direction post weight loss.
Look, he wouldn't care what I look like, I know that, but it's the things that we can do together now that you know, we weren't able to do before. Well, I felt we couldn't do before, and that is, you know, we love travelling now. We love spending time with the grandkids, you know, just working around the house, you know, we're into the cars still and the drag racing and all that, you know. So, you know, we do everything together, and that's a bonus, and that's the support that I have. And
love it.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That. Fantastic. Congratulations. I think that's just sensational.
I'm lucky. You have to put up with a lot.
So, okay, you're now 66. 17 years ago we first met. Now let's talk about what does life look like And this is a big thing to discuss, and it's something that I talk to so many patients about when they're first looking at surgery. And so many people in their 40s and 50s, they don't think about functional fitness. They don't think about where am I going to be at 76, 86 and beyond. So for me, the big thing is creating an opportunity where patients are never going to end up in a nursing home. They're never going to end up in the cardiologist's rooms or the endocrinologist's. Sorry to all of those doctors out there, but this is all about preventative health. We want patients to live healthy, fulfilled, active lifestyles. So let's look through the looking glass. What is that going to look like for you now, and how do you feel about your future?
Oh, look, I'm looking after my 90-year-old next door neighbour at the moment, and I look at her and I think how wonderful she is, and I'm thinking I'm going to be that when I'm 90. So, I look at a happy, fulfilled, long life. And I mean, weight does shorten your life. There's no two ways about that. We know that. So by being able to lose the weight, maintain it as I have for 17 years, it's a great future. A happy future with watching more grandchildren, I hope. And Ron and I living a very relaxed lifestyle. It's going to come. They told me when I retired, but I've retired only a month ago, and I sort of feel like I haven't slowed down at all. I'm still busy than ever. And that's what keeps you going. Keeps me young. Yeah.
So what's the next trip for you and Ron?
We're off on a cruise in a couple of weeks, just a short one down to Sydney and then a couple of nights down there. And then next year I'm looking at the Greek Isles.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so that's my plan.
Fabulous.
But sometimes I just do spur of the moment things. Like we'll just go to Fiji and book Fiji and go.
Wow, that's so good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your top 3 takeaways. The top 3 things that you feel have most changed or been impacted in your life post-surgery. What would you say those top 3 things would be for you?
As in what I shouldn't eat, what I don't eat now that I did it? No.
It could be food related, it could be lifestyle related, just your top 3.
Oh gosh, Felicity, now you've caught me on the hop. Well, it's really funny because I love potato chips, like hot chips. I very rarely have them now. And even if I do, I only have a few. It just quenches that, What else? There's so many things. So that's food related. I love it that I can, when I'm outside with the kids and I'm running around after them, or I'm on the ground with them, with the grandkids and that, that I can do that. And even Ron says, I don't know how you do that. How do you get down there and do that? So that's probably the biggest thing. And, I just really enjoy being with friends and family. So, just being able to we have great travel mates that we go away with quite a lot. And, it's just great to be able to walk along the beach with them wherever we are, whether it's Fiji or, Japan or wherever we've been. They're a really important part of my life as well. We have some really good close friends. And life's good.
So if you could give advice to someone who was thinking about, taking on board their wellness journey, and if that incorporated surgery or whatever that looks like, what would be the first thing that you would tell them about, what they really should be doing about actively seeking out a healthy quality of life, decision?
Look, have an open mind. Have an open mind. Take all the information in. Absorb it. Think for yourself. Don't think about what other people think. Make the decision for yourself, because it will be the right decision. I honestly believe that if you are looking down this path, then you really need to, come to your seminars, because, I know I went to so many of those, and it was at those seminars that, I got lots of information, and it was just mind-boggling, some of it, but I took it home and, we discussed it with everybody, the kids and all, and that was the path we wanted to go down. So I'm saying be open-minded, and if this is what you want to do, then go for it. I've never looked back.
I'm loving this conversation, and I have to say, your journey has literally, for me, there are so many standout patients over the last 20 years, but yours is definitely one that stands out. It's etched in my memory, and the memory of Noosa Triathlon specifically will be one of the biggest.
And every time that comes on, I think about it.
Oh, it's just phenomenal. And I really think for me in this journey, looking back now over 20 years and starting this series of Wellness Warrior podcasts, that you absolutely epitomise the Wellness Warrior model. I mean, seriously amazing, and it's just fantastic to have witnessed your journey, to have seen all of the incredible changes throughout 17 years. For me, the projection for your future is just stunning, and you're going to have the best next 30, 40 years ahead of you. And I'm really looking forward to sharing and watching that with you. And thank you so much for coming on my podcast. It's been wonderful having you here. Thanks so much,
Down
Trish.
memory lane. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining the Wellness Warriors podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you online with us. If you enjoyed the series, please leave your review, subscribe and follow, and we look forward to sharing many more stories with you in the future.